These are the multiple choice questions for the U.S. History, Civil Rights, and Vietnam exam. Many Southern states disenfranchised African Americans by using each of the following except poll tax, literacy tests, violence and intimidation, or sit-ins. Each of the following were true of African Americans in the early 1960s, except they lived an average of 7 years fewer than whites. There were no organizations advocating for equal rights for Blacks. Black children were half as likely to graduate high school and a third as likely to graduate college as white children. Unemployment was twice as high for Black Americans, and they earned only half as much as white Americans. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled segregation unconstitutional in public schools with its ruling in Brown versus Board of Education, Plessy versus Ferguson, Board of Education versus Nelson, or Tinker versus Des Moines. Martin Luther King Jr. was known for his advocacy of what type of protest? By any means necessary, violent, peaceful, or ineffective. This man was the governor of Alabama who opposed desegregation. George Wallace, Emmett Till, George Lincoln Rockwell, or Orville Faubus. This person advocated Black separatism and equal rights by any means necessary. Martin Luther King Jr., Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, or Malcolm X. This person was a co-founder of the Black Panthers along with Bobby Seale. Martin Luther King Jr., Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, or Malcolm X. This person popularized the term Black Power. Martin Luther King Jr., Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, or Malcolm X. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended legal segregation in public places, banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, or religion, banned employment discrimination on the basis of sex or national origin, or all of the above. The Civil Rights era successfully ended racial discrimination by police, advanced equal rights for African Americans, ended poverty in African American communities, or unified African Americans under one leader. The leader of the Communist government of North Vietnam was Ngo Dien Diem, Charlie Tet, Ho Chi Minh, or Mao Zedong. This led U.S. officials to the conclusion that we must stop the spread of communism in Vietnam. The Domino Theory, the Communist Manifesto, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, or the assassination of President Kennedy. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution gave the president the authority to use military force in Vietnam, gave the president the authority to end segregation in public facilities, limited the president's authority to wage war in Southeast Asia, or clearly defined the rules of war. Rolling Thunder was an example of what? A search and destroy mission, winning hearts and minds, containment, or escalation. U.S. strategy in Vietnam included search and destroy missions, winning hearts and minds, both A and B, or none of the above. Napalm was a chemical used to kill vegetation found to have serious side effects, a jellied gasoline incendiary that sticks to skin and burns its victims, not used in Vietnam because it was considered cruel, or all of the above. Agent Orange was a chemical used to kill vegetation found to have serious side effects, a jellied gasoline incendiary that sticks to skin and burns its victims, not used in Vietnam because it was considered cruel, or all of the above. Many historians consider this to be the turning point in the war in Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, Rolling Thunder, the Tet Offensive, or the election of Richard Nixon. My Lai was a brutal example of cruelty against civilians during war, was an example of heroic valor and bravery in combat, was the biggest victory for America in the war, or was an example of Vietnamese cruelty against American soldiers. Nixon's policy to end U.S. involvement in Vietnam was known as this, which resulted in what? Was it known as Vietnamization, which resulted in a U.S. victory in Vietnam? Was it known as Americanization, which resulted in Vietnam divided to this day? Was it known as Vietnamization, which resulted in a Vietnam divided to this day? Or was it known as Vietnamization, which resulted in a Vietnam unified under communist rule?